Hello, this is Troels from ADO, and in this video I'll be doing our first presentation of H or Acoustic Grand Ensembles. And in this video particularly we're going to focus on the piano ensemble, but we have a variety of other videos focusing on all the other ensembles. And we both have an H Volume 1 and an H Volume 2 coming out at the same time, so there's an enormous amount of these ensemble instruments. The notion of these grand ensembles really goes back to 8W, our mega orchestra, where we did a 240-piece orchestra, which is a part of our VAP series. We also did Imperium, which is a 200-person choir. But we also wanted to experiment more, and this is almost 2 years ago, with the notion of what happens if we bring ensembles together, just like in the sense that we bring normal orchestral instruments like violins or cellos and all that together. What happens if we actually take more unconventional instruments like harps or pianos or guitars and put them in ensembles? What kind of sound will that generate? And the end result is just staggering. It's beautiful and enlightening in many ways for us as a sample developer, because the instruments, just like they do with violins or anything else, become something more than their individual counterpart. And as you're about to hear in this video, something magical happens when you have 4 Steinway concert grands in a massive hall and you surround them with microphones, in the sense that we both did hall-based microphones such as Decca and Far and Wide and all the normal ones, but we also did individual spot mics. And when you use H, and I'll demonstrate that in the video, you can actually dial in whether you want the hall mics or the more spot or close mics on the individual instruments. And obviously the concept being that you can really dial in the sound that fits in your mix, whether you need a more local upfront mix or you want a little more of the whole or you want both. It's all there ready to go. But let me just first of all show you the interface we got here. So normally we have our articulation module here, and I'll go a little more into that throughout the video, because we also have a sequencer here that allows you to sequence between articulations. You can sort of create a wave sequence where it triggers different articulations here. But in core, this is the articulation page. We got a purge function here, so you can unload and load the libraries, and we can also here, you can assign them to CCs and do a variety of magical things in regards to your controller and assigning the articulations to whatever controller you want. We also have an options page here, and this is cool, especially in regards to release triggers. We often get this request by like, well, the hall has a lot of bleed and all that stuff, and obviously you can turn that down if you use the release trigger here, so you can get really a more dry setting. And if you really want to go dry, I really recommend using the spot mics, which are notably more dry, or the close mic here on the mixer as well. It's fairly dry as well, and really allows you to get more of a local sound. But I normally use the mix for most things. The mix microphone is where we took both all the hall-based mics and the spot mics and create a sort of a sweet mix where you really got the sort of the best of it all, so it's not too memory intensive. But that's it in its core in regards to the interface here. Obviously, we also have our effects page here, our Chaos Effects 3.0, and there's a variety of things. We got 2 different types of convolutions, and we got our stereo or dual delay, transgate, degrade, and all that. And we also added our arpeggiator and our sequencer here as well, so you can do a variety of different sequencing, step sequencing, and combine it with an arpeggiator as well. And I'll demonstrate that. It's actually pretty cool to do it with multiple ensemble instruments, to start sequencing that way and using through arpeggiator. And especially if you start arpeggiating through the sequencer, meaning that you'll be doing arpeggiations of all the individual articulations cycling through. But we'll go into that in great detail. But there's one more thing I should probably mention before we get started here as well. On the mixer page here, this is often ignored by many people. Obviously you can load and save your settings here, so if you have a specific setting or you like in terms of microphone positions or pan and all that, you can certainly do that. But up here is an important notion as well. You can either choose stereo field or EQ presence, and essentially we made a really cool EQ setting, and I prefer actually to have it up a fair bit here, which makes the whole library shine a little more. Anyway, now that we've dialed in our EQ presence here, let me try to demonstrate here the sustains. And obviously this is the main mics, meaning that we've loaded the hall mic module here, as you can see here as well. So this is what it sounds like with the mixed microphone position for 4 grand pianos. So, you know, there's a nice fat bottom down there in the deep notes, and it's gonna get a lot more stream. This is just a very gentle beginning of this video. Let's go here to the staccatos. They're so lively. We did them both in a variety of dynamics and round robin as well. Let me try to play a little bit here, and I'll sort of try to go a little more up and down in dynamics. So you can check out the dynamic variation. The sound is really good from both soft to harder, and you can play some really cool motion picture Alan Silvestri stuff with it. And it's a fairly coherent sound, actually. I'll demonstrate a little later on the spot mic so you can hear how different the different pianos sound and how much the sound is augmented by the fact you're hearing 4 of them. But we really, with the staccatos, had to do a lot of takes to get them very precise in their playing, so it sounds like a coherent sound, like not 4 scattered pianos. We have the tremolo pad if you want to hear what that sounds like. I'll demonstrate that as well. But let me try to do a little more sort of motion picture Silvestri kind of stuff here on the stacks. One of the really powerful sounds in the piano module here is our plug pianos. So in essence, opening up the whole hood of the piano and start plugging the strings with guitar picks. And as you'll hear this sound, it's like the most ginormous harpsichord you've ever played in your life. It has a fat sound. Just wait till you hear it down the bottom. It's so cool. Some serious grit on that end string. It's kind of cool if you listen carefully. You can hear how the individual strings were like, eow. You can hear that resonance, but not just from one set of pianos, but from the 4 different pianos sort of commingling their sound. It's beautiful. Let me try to do the same thing again, but this time I'll add some of the plucked effects, and I'll show them a little later as well. So I'll sort of be crescendoing effects into the sound. It's a cool effect, and it makes the piano sound like a hell of a lot more than a normal piano. I hope that's fat enough for you. You know, if you think about it, like normally this would be like heavy sound design to really get it, but this is totally acoustic, straight out of the box. We've done no processing to this at all. This is really what it sounded like with the 4 pianos, and I think it's an extraordinary sound. I've never ever heard pianos like this before. Let me also try to demonstrate here quickly the tremolo pad. We did sort of I call it a starry night kind of approach, where you just have little twinkles of sound with space in between them, but when you do it for 4 different instruments at the same time, you create a sort of more lively, sort of tremolo-ish pad. And we also did that in velocity layer, so I'll try to just play something very ambient, and it'll get a little more gradually hotter as we go into it. And we've actually done tremolo pads for a variety of the different instruments. They're really beautiful if you use them with normal pads as well. So you can have a synth pad underneath. You can do some crazy beautiful things. We actually have some aspects of that in our own synth module that I'll also demonstrate in this video. Obviously, all the 8 instruments is not just that we recorded these mega ensembles, but we also synthesized them. And we had Steve Taraglione help us create additional ambiences out of the material as well. So there's a lot of synthetic material, but I'll demonstrate that too. Let me try to go here through just some of the effects. We have a fairly massive section of effects down here. And first I'll try to demonstrate some of the very sort of short percussive clusters, and then we'll go into some of the longer and faster glissandos and clusters as well. There's some crazy cool stuff here, and it's sort of a sound designer's dream. And obviously, as I'll demonstrate as well, all these things can be done on the spot mics as well. So if you think a glissando is a little too dominant with all the pianos together, you can dial in and say like, well, I only want this on, you know, piano number 2 or 4, whatever it is. So check this out. For me, that is the coolest sound. That, like, it's way more than just a piano. It's like the coolest ensemble sound. And like, I should probably demonstrate in the video where you take that and you combine it with our KHR 8W and our percussion. It's an enormous sound. And with all the mics, you can create crazy, crazy cool effects out of it. That's what happens when you like take 4 grand pianos and you string them at the same time with guitar picks. Let me try to move on here as well. Let's go up here and take a look at these guys. So in essence, this looks like what you just looked at, except that it's for the spot mics. And if you go here to the mixer page, you're going to notice that it's a little bit different. Right now, we have all the spots loaded here. I'm just going to try to solo them quickly so you can hear the sort of different character on the pianos here, what they sound like. So yeah, I don't know why I played it like it sounded like an error sound, but this is really one of the beautiful parts about the library as well, because not only do you get your ensembles, but you actually get 4 different types of instruments as well. So if you load up other modules, for example, our marimba module, you're going to notice there's actually more spot mics for each marimba as well. So it's not just that you get ensemble instruments, but you also get their individual counterparts. So there's a lot of variation, and I think you could hear here that the texture is somewhat different when you hear them like that. But let's try to load all the microphones here, and I'm just going to fool around a little bit with the EQ presence here and maybe do some different mics. Let me just check the sound. And it's cool, you can almost hear like the different formats in the piano. It's like be like almost have like the ultimate piano computer. You can dial in, oh, that one is a little sharper, that one is a little more muffled. Particularly number 4 here has a little more sharpness to it. But again, you can dial in exactly what you want. Let me also try to, let's turn on the arpeggiator in here, and let's try to do a freaky staccato experiment with the arpeggiator. So in essence, I'm just going to hold down the keys here, and we're going to activate the arpeggiator in here, and we're going to see what happens. So as you could probably hear, I went through different dynamics from the sort of softer staccato. So obviously these are recorded both in velocity layers and round robin as well, so you get a more natural variation in the staccato as well. Let me try to demonstrate another thing here. Let's try to plug, and I'll show you what they sound like individual, and then we'll combine them into a mega pluggy. I like the sound of that. Let's try to play a little thing here with them. As I mentioned earlier, one of the great things about the spot mics is that you can isolate the different things. So if you're interested in really getting a more local sound, not just of the tonal stuff, but also of the effects-based stuff, it's really great to play around with the microphones and sort of dial in the sound you want and look for the sound you want. There's so many hidden textures and obviously an enormous amount of samples in this collection as well. Let me just try to play a simple effects here. I'll play with all the mics and then I'll isolate them afterwards so you can hear how different they actually sound collectively and individually. Also, as I mentioned earlier, a beautiful part of the library is our synthetic patches, and there's a lot you can do with them. Essentially, we took all the source content from the individual ensemble groups. In this case, these are the pianos, but we also merged them with a variety of our custom samples, our VIP samples, our ATO samples, and created some beautiful, crazy, cool textures here. Let me try to demonstrate a couple of them here in a sort of simple fashion, and then we're going to go a little more into how to use the articulation sequence and how to combine it with our KRS effects as well. There's some beautiful things that can be done once you start mingling the interface, and I really hope one of the intentions here is not to make things overly complicated. We want you to have fun right off the bat, but again, you can always dial in here and start going crazy if you want to get into the more elaborate aspects, and I'll try to demonstrate that. But let's just start here with a couple of patches. And as you can probably hear, there's a lot of organic textures in there. One thing we really like to work with, and almost our ADL mantra, I suppose, is to infuse life into the samples. So when you have a pad, we're sort of over the days where it's just like a static synth pad, just droney. But there needs to be more lively elements in them. So we're doing a lot of different things and tricks to make sure that the sound is always alive. There's emotion in it, there's a breath. And it's not just a static drone. Obviously, there are a million gazillion synthesizers that can do that already, but these more advanced, complicated types of textures are a little more delicate to create, and it's really something we're trying to infuse into a lot of the 8 synths here. We also have some more static ones, but there's a lot of life in the textures. Another aspect to the synth that's really great is not just play the synths alone here, but also to combine them with the sounds that I demonstrated earlier on. So let me try to demonstrate another pad here, but this time I'm also gonna add a pluck sound on top of it. So you get that natural acoustic sound of the plucked ensemble together with the synthetic ensemble here as well. Okay, so that's one thing. Let's try this time around to activate the arpeggiator as well. And I think this time it's set to 60. Yeah, this should be fine. Okay, cool. So the ARP is on, and obviously, as you're gonna see here, it's actually cycling through all the patches. And we actually have 4 modules down here. If you want to create very elaborate cycles, you can do that as well. I'm just going to stay with this one. And sometimes I actually like to click the question mark right in the middle of a cycle, which means that the cycle gets randomized in real time, and it sort of changes the whole pattern behavior out as well. And if you don't like, let's say right now it's running in 16th, obviously you can actually just remove this one and it will play in 15th. So if you want a more offset kind of thing, you can do that as well. So let's try it out. I'm going to play some heavy arpeggiations here, and then I'll play a little bit with the normal plucked ensemble on top of that, and we'll see what it sounds like.